Okay, I'm gonna. That's a. Oh yeah, you're really opening up a huge can of worms there with that question. I'm going to show one model, if I may. I'm going to just draw this, so forgive my terrible drawing. It's a very useful model that Carl Jung talked about in his book Psychology of the Transference, and it's taken slightly out of context, but it'll do the job. When we're working with another person, and that could be frankly anybody. It could be you as a leader, it could be you as a parent, it could be you as a partner, sibling, doesn't really matter. There are 4 conversations happening at any point in time. So if I'm here and you're here, the first conversation that is happening is the rational one. That's this one here.
Yeah.
So this is conscious and this is unconscious. So the rational one above the surface. So we have this conversation. It's fine. It's generally quite dull and moderated by social context and all of that good stuff. Doesn't really matter that much. The second conversation that's happening is are these two. What is my internal dialogue? As Manfred Kretz de Vries put it, my inner theater. How do I feel about that conversation? And how do you feel about that conversation? So as we start to kind of exchange views as a leader, as this reverie starts to build up, it's important then to recognize that some of that conversation is from me and some of it is from you. And again, this is why reverie really matters as an idea, because it's a recognition that we are together in a way, groping after a truth that might become shared, but starts with something from you, which bounces off me, which then returns to you, and so on and so forth. And we kind of eventually get somewhere. The third conversation, which I think is really important, is that some of the things we talk about are entirely unconscious. We have no kind of way of making sense of them. This is where things like gender, race, age, and all of the other strange projections that we might deploy onto other people start playing out. This middle conversation here is our capacity as coaches or leaders, which is why the idea of attunement and reverie is so important, starts to make sense of it. I can start wondering about what might be going on here for you. I can start wondering about what your inner theater might be. I can also start recognizing that the same is happening for you, and that you're also in some way connecting with what may be happening for me. This can be summed up very, very simply with the phrase that in every relationship we have, some of this is your shit, some of this is my shit, and some of this is our shit. It's combined. It's a factor of both. My thesis, in essence, is that if we as leaders become more attuned to the people we work with, if we're able to watch them, notice them, if we're able to use a reverie to co-create meaning, then eventually that will work its way out. I mean, Jung was talking about this as a kind of very analytic model where we're going into therapy, which is good. It's one use of the model. Coaches can use it for a similar purpose. But from a leader, as a very simple idea, just this idea that you are not alone. You are co-creating ideas with people all the time. And, that sounds kind of obvious, I guess, because, the audience being what it is, you'll all be thinking, yeah, well, that feels okay. I had a guy on a program recently, a senior banker, who for him, the concept that his secretary had an internal psychological life of her own was an amazing breakthrough. I mean, he literally came back to the program and said, I spoke to her and she had all these opinions and it was fantastic. And you think, wow, you're 52 and you've been running a business for 30 years and okay, that's where we are. So I think we've got a bit of a mountain to climb here. So I think your question is a really important one, this simple recognition that we are a mass of projections. We're constantly bouncing ideas off each other. And if we're able to involve ourselves in deeper, richer conversations, ultimately it will sort of work its way out. Maybe a bit of an act of faith on my part, but experience would lead me to believe it does work.